In the far reaches of the galaxy, where stars shimmered like living gems and planets hung like floating islands in the void, ruled the Xylarian Empire, a proud and ancient civilization. Its people, the Xylarians, were tall, graceful, and known for their psychic powers. They could move objects with their minds, sense emotions, and even communicate across great distances without words. Their ruler, Queen Seraphis, was both feared and admired. She had led her empire through countless challenges, always standing with calm strength and wisdom. Her violet eyes could pierce through deception, and her voice carried the authority of 1,000 years of royal blood. But even empires like hers could not remain unchallenged forever. A few years ago, a strange species entered their borders, small, flesh-based beings who called themselves humans. Their ships were slow, their technology primitive, and their bodies seemed fragile compared to Xylarian strength. At first, the Xylarian generals wanted to conquer them immediately, but humans were not as weak as they appeared. When the Xylarian fleet attacked a human colony, the humans fought back fiercely. They used clever tactics, strange energy weapons, and an unpredictable fighting spirit. Though outnumbered, they refused to surrender. After many battles, both sides realized the war was useless and costly. A peace treaty was suggested, one that would bind the two civilizations together. To everyone's surprise, Queen Seraphis herself offered a symbolic union. She would marry a human, showing that peace between their races could exist not only in politics but in blood. The chosen human was Captain Ethan Ward, an ambassador from the United Earth Coalition. He was not a warrior or nobleman but a soldier-turned-diplomat, known for his bravery and calm reasoning. When Ethan arrived on the Xylarian capital world, Xylaris Prime, the entire empire watched. The alien skies shimmered with silver clouds and crystal towers rose high into the atmosphere. Thousands of Xylarians gathered to see what kind of man their queen would marry. To them, Ethan looked ordinary. He was shorter than most of them, his skin pale compared to their silver tone, his eyes simple shades of blue. He did not wear armor or jewels, only a simple formal suit marked with the emblem of Earth. When he first stood before Queen Seraphis, the entire hall fell silent. Seraphis, seated upon her throne of light, studied the human carefully. "You are smaller than I expected," she said, her tone calm but curious. Ethan smiled slightly. "Maybe, but I'm not easily broken, Your Majesty." A few murmurs rippled through the crowd. The Queen's guards looked offended. No one spoke so casually to their ruler. But Seraphis only tilted her head, intrigued by his lack of fear. She had met countless leaders and warriors who trembled before her psychic presence, yet this human seemed untouched by it. Over the following months, their strange marriage began. It was not one of passion at first, but of curiosity and learning. Ethan tried to understand Xylarian customs, their formal dances, their energy-based art, their telepathic conversations. Many laughed behind his back when he struggled to learn, but he kept trying day after day. Seraphis observed him quietly. She noticed how he treated everyone with respect, even the servants and guards. He never demanded, never complained. When people mocked him, he only smiled. One evening, while standing on the palace balcony overlooking the shining city, she asked, "Why do you never fight back when they mock you?" Ethan looked at the twin moons above and replied softly, "Because they don't know me yet." "And peace isn't built by returning every insult." His words stayed in her mind. Xylarians respected strength above all else, yet this human's strength was quiet, invisible, something she didn't fully understand. Days turned into weeks. The Queen found herself drawn to his honesty. He spoke to her as an equal, not as a subject. He asked questions no one else dared ask, about her loneliness, her fears, and her dreams. He made her laugh, something she hadn't done in years. Slowly, the people's view began to shift. The Queen's human husband became a topic of endless discussion. Some said he was unworthy. Others said his calm courage showed hidden wisdom. But Seraphis didn't care what they thought. One night, during a royal dinner, a Xylarian noble mocked Ethan in front of everyone. "So tell us, human," the noble sneered. "How does it feel to be the weakest creature in the palace?" The hall went silent. Even the servants stopped moving. Ethan didn't react with anger. He simply looked at the noble and said with a gentle smile, "If weakness means choosing peace over pride, then I am happy to be weak." The Queen saw something shift in the crowd that night. A few Xylarians lowered their eyes, ashamed. Even she felt her heart move. There was something powerful in his quiet confidence, something she had never seen in warriors who boasted of their strength. Over time, Ethan and Seraphis began to grow closer. They would walk together through the crystal gardens, talk for hours about their worlds, and even argue sometimes about the nature of strength and leadership. "Your people think strength is in power," Ethan said once. "But real strength is the choice not to destroy when you can." Seraphis looked at him curiously. "And your people? What do humans think strength is?" Ethan smiled. "We're still learning, but I think it's about standing up even when everyone tells you not to." For the first time in centuries, the queen felt her heart stir in a way that had nothing to do with duty or empire. She found herself waiting for his voice, his laughter, his strange earth stories. Still, she saw him as fragile. His body was mortal, his lifespan short. When she looked at her psychic warriors, she thought Ethan would not last a moment in battle. She protected him, made sure he was guarded, and forbade him from joining military meetings. Ethan accepted it quietly, though sometimes a faint sadness crossed his face. Months passed in peace. The marriage that began as a treaty turned into something more, a bridge between two civilizations. Yet deep in the shadows of the stars, a new threat was growing. The Vorn Collective, a race of living metal, was spreading across galaxies, consuming everything in their path. For now, the queen and her human husband knew nothing of the storm that was coming. One night, as Seraphis stood alone on her balcony, the wind carrying soft blue lights from the city below, she felt a strange sensation. Ethan was nearby, watching the same stars she was. He said quietly, "Your stars look different from Earth's, but they shine the same way." She turned to him and smiled. "You humans have a strange way of finding beauty in everything." Ethan looked at her gently. "That's how we survive." Seraphis didn't understand what he meant then. But later, when the galaxy trembled, those words would echo in her heart. That night, she looked at her human husband, the man she once thought was weak, and felt something unfamiliar. A flicker of trust, a hint of warmth, a seed of love. She didn't know yet that inside him slept a force that could shake worlds, and when that force awakened, even the queen of the Xylarians would be left speechless. Months passed peacefully after the grand union between Queen Seraphis and Captain Ethan Ward. The two rulers, one human, one Xylarian, brought stability to a galaxy that had long known only war. Trade routes reopened, scientists exchanged knowledge, and both species began to trust one another. The people of Xylaris started to see humans in a new light. They were not just small or fragile, they were clever, determined, and full of creativity. The queen often watched Ethan spend hours with Xylarian engineers, suggesting small but clever improvements to their starship engines. Ethan was not a man of power, yet somehow his quiet ideas had more impact than 1,000 speeches. The queen admired this about him. He didn't seek glory, he simply wanted to help. One evening, as the twin moons rose high above the shining city, Seraphis stood beside him on the palace balcony. The view was breathtaking, the silver towers reflected the moonlight like crystal flames. "Do you ever miss Earth?" she asked softly. Ethan smiled faintly. "Sometimes, but I think I found something better here." The queen turned to him, surprised. "Better?" "Yes," he said, looking at her with warmth. "A home that doesn't just exist on a planet, but in a person." Seraphis felt her chest tighten. She had faced assassins, led armies, and faced psychic storms that could crush cities. But no moment had ever shaken her like that simple human sentence. She looked away, hiding a small smile. "You humans and your strange words," she said softly. "You always find a way to disarm even the strongest hearts. But peace, like the stars, never lasted forever." The first signs of war far beyond the Xylarian borders, deep in the dark void between galaxies, sensors picked up something terrifying. An armada of metal creatures moving in perfect silence. They were called the Vorn Collective, a species of living machines that devoured entire worlds. They were not driven by greed or hatred. They had only one purpose: consume and evolve. The Xylarian scouts who first encountered them never returned. The last transmission they sent was full of static and fear. When the news reached the capital, panic spread. The queen gathered her council at once. The Grand Hall of Xylaris was filled with shimmering holograms showing fleets being destroyed one after another. The Vorn have taken 3 outer colonies, a general reported. Their ships regenerate faster than we can destroy them. Our psychic attacks do nothing, they have no minds to influence. Queen Seraphis stood tall, her expression cold but controlled. Then we fight with everything we have. They will not reach Xylaris. Her generals bowed, but Ethan noticed the fear in their eyes. He stepped forward. What do we know about them? The council turned to him surprised. Few ever spoke without being asked in the royal chamber. They consume energy, said one scientist nervously. They convert entire planets into fuel. No species has ever survived their advance. Ethan crossed his arms. Has anyone tried diplomacy? A ripple of laughter passed through the room. One general said, "You cannot talk to a storm, human." Ethan didn't reply. He simply looked thoughtful, his blue eyes calm even in the face of the coming destruction. Later, when they were alone, Seraphis turned to him. "You should not have spoken out of turn. My generals don't take kindly to it." "I noticed," Ethan said quietly, smiling a little. "But I had to ask. Every enemy has a weakness. Even storms." Seraphis studied him for a long moment. "You think you can find a weakness in the Vorn?" He looked up at the stars. "Maybe, but not from a council room. I'll need to see them up close." The Queen frowned. "You're not going anywhere near the front lines." "Seraphis," he said gently. "I was a soldier before I was an ambassador. Let me help." She shook her head. "I will not risk you. You're my husband, and you are human. Our enemies would crush you in an instant." Ethan didn't argue further, but a quiet determination settled in his eyes. The fall of the Outer Worlds weeks later, reports grew worse. Planet after planet fell to the Vorn. They moved faster than light could travel, cutting through Xylarian defenses like blades through silk. Refugees flooded the inner systems carrying stories of black skies and burning worlds. The Queen worked day and night, organizing evacuations and fortifying the capital. Her eyes grew tired, her voice hoarse from endless orders. Ethan stayed by her side. He helped organize refugee shelters, spoke with frightened citizens, and calmed the young officers. When everyone else panicked, he stayed calm. Once, after a long day, Seraphis asked him quietly, "How can you remain so calm when everything is falling apart?" Ethan looked at her, his expression steady. "Because fear helps no one. And I've seen worse." She tilted her head. "Worse than this?" He nodded slowly. "Humans have a long history of fighting things stronger than ourselves. We survived because we learned to adapt, to think differently. We don't always win, but we don't stop trying." Seraphis looked at him, realizing again how different humans were. They didn't have psychic powers or great lifespans, yet their spirit burned brighter than any star she had known. Still, even her admiration couldn't hide the truth. The Xylarian army was losing. The enemy arrives one dark morning. Alarms blared across the capital. The Vorn fleet had entered the system. Their ships were monstrous, huge, spiked things that looked alive, glowing with red energy. The skies over Xylaris turned black as the machines began their assault. City shields flickered, defense cannons roared, and psychic warriors hurled their power into the heavens. But the Vorn didn't stop. Every time one ship fell, 2 more replaced it. Their metal bodies absorbed attacks and rebuilt themselves instantly. The Queen stood in the command center, surrounded by chaos. Her officers shouted reports, and holograms flickered as the planet's defenses weakened. Ethan entered the room, his uniform dusty, his face calm despite the shaking walls. "Ethan, you must go to the shelters," Seraphis ordered. "It's not safe here." "I'm not leaving you," he said simply. "This is not a human war." She snapped, her voice filled with frustration and fear. He stepped closer. "It is now. You married me, remember?" The Queen stared at him, her violet eyes trembling with emotion. She had faced death 100 times, but the thought of losing him made her heart tighten painfully. Before she could reply, a massive explosion shook the palace. The shield generator had fallen. Outside, the metallic swarm began landing in the streets. Seraphis turned to her guards. "Evacuate the civilians!" "Fall back to the palace gates." She looked at Ethan again. "Go to the lower chambers." "That's an order." Ethan hesitated, then nodded slowly. "All right, but promise me you'll be careful." She touched his face briefly, a rare gesture of affection. "I am the Queen of Xylaris. I will not fall easily." He smiled faintly. "I know. But even queens need someone to watch their back." Before she could answer, he was gone, disappearing down the corridor. The whisper in the dark as the battle raged above. Ethan found himself in the lower halls of the palace, helping guards set up emergency barriers. But when he was alone, something strange happened. A faint hum filled the air. His hands began to glow softly with blue light, just like that night on the balcony. He looked at them silently, as if remembering something long forgotten. A small device in his pocket flickered, a human artifact, marked with an old symbol of Earth's forgotten wars. He whispered to himself, "It's not time yet." But soon, above, Queen Seraphis was fighting alongside her soldiers, psychic energy glowing around her like violet fire. But even her immense power couldn't stop the endless metal tide. The city burned. The sky wept sparks. In that chaos, one truth began to form. The queen's human husband was not what he seemed, and when the palace itself came under siege, when all hope was gone, he would reveal the truth that would change everything. The once shining capital city of Zalaris Prime was now a battlefield. The silver towers that once reached proudly toward the sky now burned and collapsed one by one. Explosions filled the air and black smoke covered the stars. The Vorn Collective had come in full force. Thousands of their ships hung in orbit, raining metal soldiers from the sky. The streets below were filled with chaos, Xylarians fighting desperately against machines that could rebuild themselves in seconds. From the balcony of the royal palace, Queen Seraphis looked down upon her dying city. Her people screamed in terror, their psychic energy flickering like dying flames. The palace trembled under heavy bombardment. Her advisors begged her to flee, but she stood firm. "A queen does not run," she said. "If Xylaris falls, I fall with it." Her armor shimmered with violet light as she summoned her psychic energy. The air around her glowed, and every Xylarian soldier nearby felt her strength fill their minds. She gave them courage even as fear surrounded them. But deep inside, her heart was heavy with worry. Not only for her people, but for Ethan, her human husband. She had ordered him to stay below the palace, far from the battle. She hoped he had listened. The human's defiance in the lower chambers, Captain Ethan Ward stood among the palace guards. The wall shook as explosions grew closer. Dust rained from the ceiling. One of the guards shouted, "Your Majesty's orders were to stay here, human. The upper floors are lost." Ethan didn't reply. His calm blue eyes looked toward the stairs leading upward. He could hear the sounds of battle, roars, screams, and the cold hum of the machines. He took a deep breath. "If she's still up there, I can't stay here." The guard stepped forward. "You'll die! You can't fight the Vorn." Ethan's expression didn't change. "Maybe, but I made her a promise." Before the guard could stop him, Ethan was already running up the stairs past falling debris and flames. As he climbed, something within him began to awaken. His heartbeat grew louder, stronger, and his vision sharpened. He could see the faint outlines of the enemy through walls. His hands glowed faintly with blue light again, the same light the queen had noticed before. He whispered softly, almost like a prayer, "Let's hope I still remember how to do this." The queen stand. Meanwhile, on the top floors, Queen Seraphis led the defense of the palace gates. Her psychic power shone like a burning sun, forming shields of light that deflected plasma blasts. Every time she moved her hand, waves of force sent dozens of metal enemies flying. But even her power was fading. For every Vorn she destroyed, more appeared. The palace defenders were falling fast. "Hold the line!" she shouted, her voice echoing across the burning hall. Then one of the Vorn, larger than the rest, stepped forward. Its body was twice the size of a man, glowing red from within. "We are the Collective," it said in a cold, mechanical tone. "Surrender your world. Resistance is inefficient." Seraphis raised her hand, her psychic energy swirling around her. Xylaris bows to no one. She unleashed a blast of pure psychic power, enough to shatter walls and melt steel. The Vorn staggered but didn't fall. It straightened itself and began to adapt, its armor changing to resist her attacks. For the first time, the queen felt fear. Her powers, her greatest weapon, were useless. The machines closed in. The awakening at that moment, the great doors of the throne hall burst open. Smoke and light filled the room as a figure stepped through. Ethan. He was no longer in formal robes, but in a dark, armored exosuit marked with the Earth Defense Corps insignia. The suit was old, scratched, and patched in places, but it pulsed faintly with blue energy. "Ethan," Seraphis gasped. "What are you doing here?" He smiled calmly, his eyes glowing faintly. Keeping my promise. The Queen's voice shook. You must leave. You can't fight them. Ethan looked past her to the advancing machines. Maybe not, but I can try. The Vorn leader turned toward him. A human. Your species is irrelevant. Ethan took a step forward. We've been called worse. Then, without warning, he clenched his fists, and the air around him exploded with blue light. The palace shook. Energy surged from his body, spreading across the floor like lightning. The Vorn soldiers froze, their sensors going wild. Their red lights flickered as Ethan's power disrupted their systems. The Queen stared, speechless. Ethan's voice deepened slightly, echoing through the hall. You should have stayed in the void. He moved faster than any human should. His suit glowed brighter, and each strike of his fists sent waves of energy through the metal invaders. The machines shattered, melting into pools of silver. Seraphis watched in awe as he fought with impossible strength. He wasn't using weapons. His very body was the weapon. Every movement was graceful yet powerful, controlled yet fierce. The Vorn tried to adapt, changing their forms, firing energy blasts, but Ethan deflected them with glowing shields that appeared from thin air. He raised his hand, and a burst of light erupted from his palm, tearing through a line of Vorn drones. The palace guards stopped fighting, frozen in disbelief. The human they thought was fragile was fighting like a storm given form. Seraphis could only whisper, What? What are you? Ethan didn't answer immediately. He turned slightly, his glowing blue eyes meeting hers. Something humanity tried to forget. The turning tide for the next few minutes, the throne hall became a storm of light and sound. Ethan's energy grew stronger with each breath, as if the battle itself fueled him. The Vorn leader charged, striking with claws sharp enough to cut through starship hulls, but Ethan caught its arm with one hand. Too slow, he said softly. He twisted, and the massive creature's body shattered like glass. A wave of blue fire burst outward, vaporizing the rest of the attackers. When the smoke cleared, silence filled the palace. The floor was cracked, the air thick with energy, and Ethan stood in the center, surrounded by the remains of the enemy. His armor flickered with sparks and his breathing was heavy. Seraphis slowly approached him, her mind struggling to understand. How is this possible? You are human. Humans do not have this kind of power. Ethan looked at her quietly. Not anymore. A long time ago, humanity learned how to use the energy inside our own bodies. The same energy that fuels stars. We called it core energy, but we sealed it away after it nearly destroyed us. He glanced down at his glowing hands. I hoped I'd never have to use it again. The Queen was silent. She had lived centuries, seen countless wonders, but nothing like this. Outside, the remaining Vorn ships began to retreat, their systems failing under the strange human energy radiating from the palace. The city below erupted in cheers as their enemies withdrew. Xylaris had been saved, but not by its psychic queen. By the human she thought she needed to protect. The aftermath as. Dawn broke over the ruined city, the smoke began to clear. The Xylarian soldiers moved through the streets, helping survivors and repairing what they could. In the palace courtyard, Queen Seraphis stood beside Ethan as he removed his helmet. He looked tired, his face pale, but his eyes still held that calm strength she had always known. You risked your life, she said softly. You disobeyed me. He smiled faintly. Would you rather I listened and let you die? The Queen couldn't help but laugh quietly, a rare sound amidst the ruins. You are reckless, human, Ethan nodded. Maybe, but that's how we survive. She looked at him for a long moment, her heart filled with something new. Respect, wonder, and love all at once. When I first met you, she said slowly, I thought you were fragile. Now I see. You are the strongest being I have ever known. Ethan shook his head gently. No, strength isn't just power. It's the will to protect what matters. The Queen smiled. Then perhaps, my human, we are not so different after all. Above them, the morning sun broke through the clouds, lighting the city once more. The people of Xylaris looked up and saw their queen and her human husband standing together, a symbol of unity between two species. They whispered his name with awe, the Starfire Guardian, but for Queen Seraphis, he was still just Ethan, the man who had shown her that true strength was not born from power or bloodline. It came from the heart of a human. The morning after the battle, Xylaris Prime was quiet but tense. The city was scarred, Buildings shattered, streets filled with debris, and the air smelled faintly of smoke and ozone. Citizens ventured cautiously outside, grateful for their lives, yet aware that the enemy might return at any moment. Queen Seraphis walked through the palace gardens with Ethan. The once pristine crystal paths were cracked, and the glowing fountains flickered weakly. Still, the rising sun bathed the broken city in soft light, a reminder that life persisted even after destruction. The queen was silent for a long time, watching her human husband. He moved calmly, inspecting the surroundings, helping guards organize repairs, and quietly offering encouragement. There was no arrogance in him, no celebration of the overwhelming power he had unleashed, only careful attention and thought. Seraphis broke the silence. "Tell me what you did yesterday. How were you able to destroy the Vorn so easily?" Ethan stopped and looked at her, his blue eyes serious. "I didn't destroy them easily, I just used something humans have kept secret for centuries, something your people have never seen before." The queen frowned. "Secret?" He nodded. "Yes, our race once had power beyond imagination. We called it core energy, a force within us that connects to the universe itself. A human who awakens it can perform feats far beyond normal limits, as you saw yesterday. Strength, speed, even manipulating energy itself, it's all possible." Seraphis stared at him. The words sounded impossible. Humans were small, fragile in appearance. They had no psychic powers. Yet here was one who had thrown back the deadliest fleet the galaxy had ever seen. "Why? Why keep it hidden?" she asked quietly. Ethan sighed, looking down at the cracked fountain. "Because it's dangerous. Long ago, humans almost destroyed themselves using this power. Wars raged across planets. Entire civilizations fell. We learned that showing it only brings fear and death. So we hid it, pretending to be weak, unimportant. It kept us safe." The queen remained silent, absorbing the revelation. She had always thought of humans as clever, yes, but fragile and limited. She realized now how wrong she had been. The scientist's discovery later that day, Xylarian scientists conducted scans of Ethan's body. Their instruments, designed to measure psychic energy, physical strength, and biosignatures, glowed furiously under his core energy. One scientist whispered, almost in awe, It's unlike anything we've ever seen. His energy resonates with the stars themselves." Another added, "We've studied humans before. We thought them weak, but this is extraordinary. He is a living reactor." Seraphis watched quietly. "And you think he can control it?" The first scientist nodded. "Yes, but we don't fully understand it yet. If more humans awakened this power, the balance of the galaxy would change." Seraphis turned to Ethan. "So all this time your people have been hiding this, pretending to be small?" Ethan smiled faintly. "Not pretending. Learning. Preparing. Waiting for the right time to reveal our true potential. But we also knew the galaxy wasn't ready, until now. A lesson in humanity. As the palace began repairs, Ethan took the queen aside for a walk. They moved slowly through the shattered crystal gardens, speaking quietly. "You know," he said, "humans are not just about power. That's why we hid it. True strength isn't what you saw yesterday." Seraphis looked at him curiously. "Then what is it?" He stopped near a fountain now filled with half-melted crystal shards. "It's the choices we make. Standing up when everyone expects us to run. Protecting those we love even when we can't win. Doing what's right even if it's difficult or dangerous." The queen's violet eyes softened. She had ruled for centuries and understood duty, strategy, and control. But this was different. She had never seen such courage rooted in the heart rather than the mind or psychic ability. Ethan continued. "Humans have survived for millions of years, not because we were strong physically, but because we refused to give up. We think, adapt, and fight for what matters. That's our real power." Seraphis's mind raced. She had always believed that power meant psychic ability, fleet size, or political control. Yet here was a human showing her that true strength could be invisible, quiet and even gentle, a warning from the stars later. Xylarian scouts detected a lingering fragment of the Vorn fleet hiding beyond the outer rim. The threat had not vanished. The collective would return, stronger and more numerous. Seraphis gathered her council again. "The humans have a secret power," she admitted to them. "One that can help us, but we must learn it, understand it, and respect it." The council murmured in disbelief. Humans, they realized, were far more dangerous than any Xylarian psychic warrior. But unlike Xylarians, their power came from courage, heart and choice, not arrogance or heritage. Ethan stood quietly, observing the discussion. When Seraphis turned to him, he simply said, "I will teach only what is necessary. Power without control is as dangerous as the Vorn." The Queen's realization that evening, Seraphis stood again on the balcony with Ethan. The city was still damaged, fires burning faintly in the distance. She looked at him and spoke, her voice soft but firm. "I thought I married a man who needed my protection. I thought humans were small, fragile, and weak. I was wrong." Ethan turned to her, a gentle smile on his face. "It's not about being strong or weak. It's about what you do with what you have." The Queen felt a strange warmth in her chest. She realized that she had underestimated not only humans but also the man she had married. His calm confidence, his courage, his strength of heart. These were gifts far greater than psychic power or fleet command. She touched his hand gently. "And I thought I was the protector." Ethan squeezed her hand. Sometimes protection comes in unexpected forms. For the first time, Seraphis understood the depth of human potential, not just in war, but in every choice, every act of courage, and every moment of compassion. A new understanding in the days that followed. The palace became a center of learning and collaboration. Xylarian scientists and engineers worked with Ethan, discovering ways humans could help protect the Empire using their core energy. He guided them, careful to teach restraint, control, and understanding. Citizens watched him in awe. To them, he was more than a human. He was a symbol of courage, of hidden potential, of hope in a galaxy that had known little of either. Queen Seraphis observed quietly, feeling pride and wonder. She had thought she knew what strength was, but humans had shown her a new truth. That strength could come from empathy, courage, and the will to protect life itself. She began to understand that the alliance between humans and Xylarians was not just political, it was something deeper. Together they could stand against any threat. Together they could face the stars themselves. And somewhere deep within her mind, the Queen realized that the human she had married might not just save her city, her empire, or her life. He might change the very destiny of the galaxy. The calm before the storm night fell over Xylaris Prime, the twin moons glowing softly above the scarred city. Citizens slept in shelters, exhausted but alive. Soldiers patrolled, alert but reassured. Ethan and Seraphis stood on the palace balcony once more, their hands touching lightly. The stars stretched endlessly above them, vast and mysterious. "Do you think they'll return?" Seraphis asked quietly, thinking of the Vorn collective lurking beyond the borders. Ethan nodded slowly. "Yes, but when they do, we'll be ready. Humanity doesn't run, we fight. And now neither do you." She looked at him with admiration and something more, something warmer, deeper, unspoken. She had seen the hidden power of humans, and she knew that this quiet man beside her had changed everything. "Then we will face them together," she said. Ethan smiled faintly, his glowing eyes reflecting the stars above. Together. The Queen realized finally that strength was not in one race, one empire, or one being. It was in the bonds between people, in courage, and in the will to act when the galaxy trembled. And with that understanding, she knew the future, uncertain and dangerous as it might be, was something she could face with hope. The galaxy was quiet, but the peace felt fragile. The Vorn collective had retreated, leaving shattered fleets and broken worlds behind. Yet Queen Seraphis knew their return was inevitable. Something in the void whispered of their persistence, their relentless hunger to conquer and consume. The palace of Xylaris Prime was alive with activity. Engineers rebuilt towers, citizens cleaned debris, and soldiers patrolled the streets. Though the city still bore scars of the invasion, life was returning slowly. Seraphis walked among her people, her violet eyes scanning for any sign of lingering fear. Many citizens stopped to bow or wave. Some whispered in awe about the human who had turned the battle. Yet Seraphis remained focused not on the praise, but on the lessons of the past weeks and on the man beside her, Ethan Ward. A quiet conversation, that evening. As twin moons rose over the city, Seraphis and Ethan walked along a newly repaired crystal bridge overlooking the capital. The air smelled faintly of ozone and rain, and the faint glow of the city below reflected in the waters of the canals. "You saved Xylaris," she said softly, almost in disbelief. "You didn't just fight. You changed the outcome of this war. How can a human possess such strength?" Ethan smiled faintly, shaking his head. Strength is not just about power. It's about choice, about what you are willing to risk for those you care for. Humans have learned that over millions of years. Seraphis stopped walking. Millions of years, he nodded. Our ancestors walked among the stars long before many species here even existed. We have made mistakes, fought wars, destroyed civilizations, but we survived. And we learned. We hide our full potential not because we fear, but because we value life. The Queen studied him, suddenly understanding why she had been drawn to him. Not just his calm courage, but his restraint, his humility. This was a being who carried unimaginable power, yet chose to protect, not dominate. A lesson for an empire over the next weeks. Ethan worked closely with the Xylarian Council and scientists, teaching them about core energy and the principles behind it. But he never used his full power unless absolutely necessary. He demonstrated small ways humans could awaken potential safely, always emphasizing responsibility. Queen Seraphis observed quietly, learning more about what humans valued. Unlike Xylarians, whose strength often showed through domination, humans derived strength from compassion, cooperation, and persistence. One afternoon, she asked him, "Do you think your people will ever reveal this power to the galaxy?" Ethan considered her question carefully. Only when the time is right. Power without wisdom can destroy as much as it protects. Humanity learned that long ago. We are patient and we wait for moments that truly matter. Seraphis nodded, seeing the wisdom in his words. The Vorn threat was still out there, but now she understood that they would be ready. Not just because of weapons, but because of courage and unity. The return of the Vorn weeks later, scouts reported fragments of the Vorn fleet returning from deep space. Their numbers were fewer than before, but their intent was unmistakable. They would strike again. The Queen gathered the council. "We cannot rely solely on fleet strength," she said. "The humans have shown us a different kind of power. We must learn from them." Ethan stood beside her, calm and focused. "They will come," he said quietly. "And when they do, we will face them together. Not with fear, but with courage." The council murmured in awe. No one had ever heard a human speak with such certainty and authority. Even the oldest generals felt a strange hope stirring in their hearts. Seraphis looked at Ethan, realizing that the man she once thought needed her protection was now the one guiding her, guiding the Empire. She felt pride, admiration, and a deep unspoken love, a night of reflection. That night, Seraphis and Ethan stood alone on the balcony, gazing at the stars. The city below was peaceful for now, though she knew it was only a brief calm. "You know," she said softly, "I once believed that strength was only in power, psychic ability, fleets, and warriors. I thought humans were weak, needing protection." Ethan looked at her, his eyes glowing faintly in the moonlight. "And now?" She smiled, a mixture of humility and wonder. "Now I see. Strength can come from heart, courage, and the will to act when it matters most. You've shown me that humans are not weak, they are extraordinary." Ethan reached out and took her hand. "We all have hidden strengths. The key is to awaken them when it counts." For the first time, Seraphis felt truly equal to him, not in power but in understanding. She had married him thinking she would protect him. Now she realized she had learned from him, had grown because of him. A symbol of unity. In the following months, the Xylarian Empire recovered. Cities were rebuilt, fleets repaired, and citizens inspired by the heroics of Captain Ethan Ward. Stories of his courage spread through every system. He became known as the Starfire Guardian, not only for his battles but for the example he set. Courage, patience, and restraint. Yet to Seraphis, he was still simply Ethan, the human who had awakened the true potential of his species and, in doing so, awakened something in her as well. Xylarian leaders began to work closely with humans, not just in science or war, but in culture, philosophy, and governance. The Empire learned humility and patience. The humans taught restraint and focus. Together they created an alliance stronger than any fleet or psychic power alone could provide. The Queen realized that this union, of species, of hearts, of minds, was the true victory of the war. The final lesson one evening, Seraphis found Ethan in the palace gardens, looking at the twin moons reflected in the fountains. He seemed calm, almost meditative, yet there was an energy about him that reminded her of the battle they had just survived. "You've changed everything," she said quietly. Ethan looked at her and smiled. "Not just me, Us, humans and Xylarians, we've learned from each other. Together we are stronger than any enemy that comes. She nodded, feeling a profound sense of understanding. I once thought I was the protector. I was wrong, he shook his head gently. Protection is not just about strength. It's about courage, love, and the willingness to stand when everything trembles. You've shown me that too. Seraphis stepped closer, her hand brushing his. Then we are equals. Yes, Ethan said softly. And together, nothing can break us. A new era as the twin moons rose higher. The city below glittered like a field of stars. Xylaris Prime had survived, and the Empire had changed forever. The people whispered of the human who had fought like a storm, and the queen who had learned that true power was not domination, but courage, heart, and unity. The Vorn might return. Other threats might rise, but now with humans and Xylarians standing together, with the quiet strength of a human alongside the wisdom of a queen, the galaxy had hope. Seraphis looked at Ethan one last time that night. You have shown me what humans are capable of, what love, courage, and strength truly mean. Ethan smiled faintly. And you have shown me that leadership is not just power, but responsibility, heart, and the will to protect those who cannot protect themselves. The queen felt warmth spread through her chest. For centuries she had ruled alone, relying on power, fear, and discipline. Now she realized that partnership, human and Xylarian, heart and mind, was stronger than any psychic blast or fleet of starships above. The stars twinkled as if in approval, and in the quiet of that night, a promise lingered between them. Whatever the universe would throw at them next, they would face it together. The human who had awakened his hidden strength and the alien queen who had learned the true meaning of courage would become legends, not just in war, but in the hearts of every being in the galaxy. Together they were unstoppable,